Computer-generated chess problem 2737 by Chesthetica. White's queen, rook, bishop and pawn are more material than black's queen, bishop and pawn. By a full rook, in fact. How should white proceed? How about queen captures queen? When you're ahead in material, you try to exchange off as much as you can so that difference becomes more prominent and it becomes easier to checkmate the opponent. Or at least that is the prevailing wisdom. King captures queen, and it just so happens in this case, it allows white to win even more material. Rook captures bishop, check. King to c3, rook to g4, king to d2, rook captures pawn, and this will go on to a forced mate because black has literally no pieces left in about 9 or 10 moves. More. Okay, is there a better way? What about queen to e1 check? Forget about exchanging queens. Forget about the prevailing wisdom. Now if queen to e4, that's a mistake because queen captures queen with mate. And if queen to e3, this allows queen to a1 check. If queen to c3, queen captures queen with mate. So queen to d4, queen to a5 check. The queen is really sliding across the edges of the board here. If queen to c5 cross check, then queen captures queen with mate. If queen to d5, queen captures queen with mate. So queen to e1 is starting to look a lot more powerful than you thought it did, isn't it? What about bishop to e3? Well then queen to g3 check if bishop to f4, rook to f5 check, sacrificing the rook. If pawn captures rook, queen to g7 mate, and if king captures rook, queen to g4 check, king to e5, and queen to e6 mates, with the bishop and the queen blocking the king's flight squares. White uses black's pieces against their own king. What if queen to f4? Well then rook captures f4. And now if g5, queen captures g5 with mate. If bishop captures rook, queen to c3 check, king to f5, and queen to f6 mate. Notice how the pawn on h3 guards the g4 square. And if here bishop to c5 check, hoping for some counterplay, the king just moves to d7, a light colored square, and queen to g5 cannot be stopped. So for example g5, queen captures g5 mate, and if bishop to e7 guarding the g5 square, well then queen to e3 mates. Look at the dynamics of this position. It's incredible, isn't it? So I hope I haven't lost you. So queen to e1 actually wins faster than queen captures queen, which was the first candidate key move we had a look at. The second one was queen to e1, which is better. But is there something even better? Actually, you already saw a clue just now. Let me show you what is the best move to play in this position. The solution to this chess problem. Rook to f5, a rook sacrifice. As we saw earlier, if king to f5, king captures rook basically, queen to g4 check, king to e5 and queen to e6 mate. This in itself is a nice finish. But the other variation is quite nice too. If the pawn captures rook, this empties the g file, which allows queen to g7 checkmate, skewering the king against the queen no less. So basically, white has given up a full rook and captured none of black's material to win in this position. And now in this final position, black and white have the same amount of material. Let's take a look at that again. So in this position here, rook to f5 check. Would you have seen this? Would you have even considered this move? Now pawn captures rook, loses immediately to queen to g7 as we saw, mate. So king captures rook to last a bit longer. Queen to g4 check. Fortunately the bishop is there on f4, so the queen cannot capture queen. The king is pushed back to e5, which allows queen to e6 mate. And again, as we see here in this final position, black and white have the same amount of material. White has sacrificed a full rook and won in the most efficient way, 3 moves. Looking back one more time, you can see there are many ways to win. There's a mate in 5, which we saw just now, starts with queen to e1 check, and the rest are longer. But the solution is rook to f5. A computer composed this, by the way, using computational creativity technology. Do you think you could have composed something like this with these pieces? How long do you think it would have taken you? In any case, thanks for watching.
Chesthetica's Book of Chess Constructs, Volumes 1 through 5. Available on Amazon.